I was physically and emotionally beaten as a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
half years, and I know that it contributed heavily to my obesity. It contributed. I never developed any like major disease other than resistance, and I know it contributed to a lot of the kind of mind games that I had to play for a very long time. And here I am, 30 years later, still trying to work out some of the shit from it.
Yep.
But that's the challenge for someone like yourself trying to help these clients now with their fat loss is you're having to absorb all of these learned behaviors, whereas your 6-year-old, she's just now learning and
Yep.
just experiencing, and you're giving her that freedom to be who she is.
Yes. Yeah. And like it's like I said before, a lot of weight loss, fat loss issues, any of that type of stuff stems back to something, an emotional or physical trauma that we experienced as children.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but that's true, right? And for me, like you said, exactly where yours is, and finding out where it came from is so helpful in your journey. It's
Yes.
not fun. It's very emotional. It's like I always say, it's the unsexy part of your health and fitness journey, but it's essential. Whenever you know where it came from, you can recognize your tendencies around the emotions that are
Yes.
causing you to not be able to lose weight or to gain weight or whatever it is. And that gives you that control that you probably feel like you've lacked for a very, very long time. And just gaining back that little bit of control is going to allow you just to gain a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more every time you feel those emotions come up. And you just keep working at that. And it's hard. Like you said, you dig into it and you could be working on it for your whole life, but you'll probably have control over it versus when before you even realize where it came from, you probably didn't have that control.
Although I will say one thing. I think that experience made me dig deeper within myself so I could be more than maybe I was going to be, but for
Yeah.
it. And it's like any challenge in your life. And I know you're all about people pushing themselves to accomplish. Like anything else, you overcome, you prove to yourself. Maybe you're telling yourself, I'm going to prove to the world, I'm going to prove to that abuser, blah, 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 blah. But you're basically saying, look, I'm capable of more than I even know, and I'm going to push myself until I accomplish. I know that's what I did.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I still feel that pull that I need to keep accomplishing in order to prove. Now, I'm well beyond that. I don't have any, I got nothing to prove. To all you
Yeah.
motherfuckers out there that think I need to prove something, I got nothing to prove. I have proved it. And anything from here on is just icing on the cake or bacon on my butter. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
I don't need it. But I think that initial just, you got
The
to
drive.
have that confidence in themselves where it was squelched for so long.
Yes. Yeah. And, I have a similar story. Like I grew up, my mom didn't have money. She was divorced. She had 4 kids. And, I remember taking literally envelopes of change to the electric place to pay the bill so it wouldn't get shut off. Right. And that to me, like I transitioned that into me. And I don't know if this actually happened or not, but like I always felt like my coaches and my teachers and everyone around me thought I was never going to become anything. And I was always going to stay in my little town, and just be nothing based on how I grew up. Right. And that's where that was like, okay, I'm going to prove you guys wrong. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to play sports in college.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get this 9 to 5. And I did all that. And I'm like, okay, I did what I was supposed to. I proved them all wrong, but I wasn't happy because I was
Right.
just trying to do what I thought everyone else thought I couldn't versus what I just wanted to do.
Yes. And man, that self-motivation, you can't put a price on that, Brenda. I think
No.
when you can tap into whatever it is that lights that fire in your belly. I remember watching the documentary about Michael Jordan, about how he got himself up to be a champion. And he told himself these things. He even made up some stuff just so
Yeah.
he had fire in his belly to be
Yep.
competitive. And I don't think a lot of us have to make up things. We got real shit from our past that we could use to motivate. Like seriously. And I
Yeah.
know some things in your life. You had a breakup with a husband. You had a lot of stuff kind of in your life that probably drives you today to kind of go, I'm going to prove I'm a badass woman.
Oh yeah. And I think, it comes down to a point too for me, it was like, hey, like I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, is this the life that I want to live? Is this the path that I want to take? Because I was unhappy, and I knew that if I stayed on that, it wasn't going to get better. It wasn't going to get easier, right? None of that was going to happen. Or I could say, okay, here's the life that I want to have. Am I willing to put in the work, the commitment, the time, the money, whatever it is that I know I need to do to be able to get to that next level self? And that's essentially what I said when I sat on that couch. I was like, okay, like I have to fucking do something. And at that point, it was something very small because I didn't have the means to do anything else. But now, just by that one small step, it's led me to here. So,
have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.
Take us back to the couch, because here you were, two very young kids. You were depressed from the postpartum depression. You were anxious. Talk about what that felt like, because I feel like that describes most people on most days, whatever it is you're about to say, and people will relate to this. And then what was that spark that got you out of that to at least start the journey to where you are now?
Yeah, so that feeling was hard. It's still hard to even think back to that moment because I did have kids. If I didn't have kids, it may have been a little bit different. But at that point, I was like, I almost felt like my hate for myself, my marriage, my body, everything that was going on was essentially being put onto these two babies. I mean, it was a 6 months old and a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old. And that feeling was like, I just didn't feel like, I felt like I was failing them. I was failing myself and I was failing them. So, sorry. I knew at that moment that I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there and sulk any longer. Like I just couldn't. And that's what I had been doing for months, like 7-8 months. And I just knew I had to do something. And that's when I was like, okay, what is my next step? And it was, for me, it was finding a new lifestyle and gaining control over my anxiety and my depression, because my OB wanted to put me on medication. I didn't want to do that. So she gave me 6 days to see if I could get this under control. That's when I jumped into the ketogenic space, and from there, it just fueled me. Like once I gained that small control, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this.
How did you find keto?
So it was through the network marketing company that I was with. Through that company, I was connected and got to watch Dr. Ryan Lowry and Dr. Jacob Wilson. And I remember when I was sitting in the audience listening to them, I literally felt like I could not get enough of what they were saying. It was the science behind it, the things that they were saying. I would listen to Dr. Mary Newport, and Alzheimer's is very heavily in my family. And I knew, I was like, holy shit, all of this information has been available to me and to my family, and I've never heard of this. Like, what? Yes. And, yes. From there, I just jumped head first. It was done. I was like, I have to do this.
I got to speak at one of those conferences, and we're going to keep that company out of this podcast because I think they're a piece of crap company. Nobody using their products. I'm just going to leave that right there. We all get an email from some friend who wants to help us live our dreams. Yeah, don't buy it, guys. Don't buy it. I'll leave that there. But yes, well, that's great. And yeah, knowledge is power. Once you hear, it's kind of like, and I hate to liken it to this because the Christians get mad at me, but it's kind of like the first time you hear the gospel of Jesus and you're like,
Mhm.
holy, died for my sins and da 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 da.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, why haven't I heard this before? And it's clicking. And so the same thing with keto for you. It sounded like Ryan and Mary and all these people, Jacob, all kind of got it to click for you, and you're like, this makes sense. I've got to do this.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I just, once I heard them talk, it was a no-brainer for me. And the way I live my ketogenic lifestyle is so different from them, right? Like, I started and I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing the Pinterest shit, and like, it was awful. I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? And now, my ketogenic lifestyle is completely different than when I stopped, and it's evolved with me.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is amazing that lifestyle can do that. It can evolve for every single person.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're not evolving with keto, you're not doing it right. Like, there's something.
No.
I've been at this I started the Atkins diet in 2004. So that's been a hell of a long time ago. And so diet I did in 2004 ain't unlike what I'm doing now. I'm doing more meat-based. I'm kind of keto carnivore now. I just feel good at, and that's what I like. Whereas at the beginning, it was lettuce wrapped turkey dipped in, and it was so different.
Cream cheese, everything.
Yeah, cream cheese on celery sticks, and like, but you learn. That's the cool thing. It's like, as you get older, yeah, things change, but you also evolve in your thinking, and the more you learn, the more you then add to it. This is why I tell people, don't get caught too much into some dogmatic position about what you're doing. In fact, don't even call it keto. Don't even call
Exactly. Yes.
real food. I think real food, if you're going to call it something, call it real food, because if you're not eating real food, you're not eating healthy. And I think people get into trouble with mind games they play with themselves when they feel like they have to put a label on it. They have to do it the same way they did when they started. I'm doing the exact same thing now as I did 3 years ago. Brenda, why isn't it working? And you're like, it changed.
Yeah, it's, when you look at keto, and this is, my business was built on keto, and I had keto in the title and everything, but I'm moving away from that because it deters women. It's a deterrent. People think, oh, it's keto, I can't do that. I'm like, bullshit. If I was to say meat and veggies, you'd be like, oh my God, yes, that sounds so great. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing. Like, that's what you're going to be doing, and that's why I'm moving away from that, to really just try to connect with those women who need to see how inflammation affects them, how the types of food they affect them. And I put this on my story the other day. My job is not to try to talk you into doing keto. My job is to show you how your body reacts to inflammation, how we can upregulate metabolism and hormones and all of these things by just simplifying the way you eat and eating clean, right? Like, I have clients that are technically low carb, but their body is in ketosis. Like, it's a metabolic state. It's not food. We don't label keto by food. We label keto by a metabolic state. And, if I can get you into keto and your body into ketosis and still allow you to enjoy some of the things you enjoy, we're going to fucking do it. We're going to do it.
This is why I love people like you and Kiana Williams and other people. Tara Garrison's another one. There's various ones that have like gone on camera and eaten a banana. I'm ketosis.
I did that last week. I was like, do you guys think I ate the banana? So many people said no, and I was like, no, I definitely ate the whole. I wasn't just carrying it around. I ate the damn banana.
But like, look, if they look at you and see these glycolytically demanding workouts you do, like, you don't have those guns for no good reason. You got guns, hun. Because you work out hard when you work out in the gym. And when you work out hard, you're depleting the glycogen stores. So when you had that banana, that was fuel, along with ketones, along with the fats and the healthy fats and the proteins that you're consuming. I love that you brought up keto's not a food, it's a metabolic state, because I feel like this is a message we need to keep amplifying and keep repeating, because, well, that's not keto. Well, that's not keto. And context is lost in that. A banana for an insulin-resistant person with type 2 diabetes with a 30 A1C, you're right. That's not keto for them.
No.
For an athlete who's making booty in the gym, It's great.
Yes. Yes.